today is Michael Levy. Michael is a born filmmaker who hails from Staten Island, New York, and has been making movies with his brother and his friends almost as long as he's been alive. He earned a bachelor's degree for television and film from St. John's University and a Master of Public Administration from Kean University. He is co-founder of the Staten Island-based production company Fuzz on the Lens with his brother Jason and collaborator Stephen Della Sala. They approach all of their projects with joy, hustle, and ingenuity that lift up those around them. Together, they have made many documentaries, short films, commercials, and music videos before graduating to feature films. As a feature director, Michael gave us the horror comedy Abnormal Attraction and assembled a who's who cast of horror legends for his next featured stream. As an actor, he's best known in the horror world as the hapless Will the Exterminator, who meets a grisly end at the hands of a killer clown in DAMIEN LEONE'S Terrifier. He's produced the exceptional documentaries Pennywise, The Story of It, and Hollywood Dreams and Nightmares, The Robert Englund Story. He's also one of the producers behind the runaway film Terrifier 2, which has defined a new subgenre of film, the mega slasher. Michael, it's nice to see you.
It's an honor to be here today, and I'm excited to speak with you.
Thank you. You and your wife just celebrated your anniversary on Valentine's Day, and I heard you were a new father. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting, part in time in my life. Having a son. So it's been exciting. It's been a real joy.
You were born and raised in Staten Island, New York. What were you like as a child, and what was it like growing up in Staten Island?
It was a lot of fun, actually. I'm still in New York, and I always say that Staten Island is like a big, studio backlot because there's so many different areas on Staten Island that look totally, unique and like it could be anywhere in the world. So growing up in Staten Island, I did a lot of filming with my family. I have a big family and a lot of my friends, and I used to take my mother's camcorder and, try to make fun little videos and our own little feature films and short films and commercials and whatnot. So I was really interested in filmmaking and acting and directing at a really, really young age, and was always just fascinated by storytelling. So my brothers and I would watch movies and shows like Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps, and I think that's where we kind of got our start with the horror stuff. Really loved Halloween and Leprechaun, and was a big fan of Back to the Future, and I loved different comedy films with Dick Van Dyke. So that's why a lot of my work personally has influences that are from both the horror and the comedy world. I love both genres just as equally. So I try to infuse that in every project that I do, whether it's comedy and there's a little horror, or it's full-blown horror and there's a little comedy. I always try to have a nice mix. But yeah, now doing it professionally and as a career, it's something that I always wanted to do really since the age of 3 or 4, as far back as I can remember. And so now I'm just doing that full time and making that dream a reality. And it's been a real blessing, and it's been a lot of fun.
Before the influence of movies, what scared you the most as a child? Was there a ghost in the attic or a monster under the bed?
Definitely, a film that scared, or really it was a mini series that scared the heck out of me as a kid, was the original Stephen King's It. So there was a lot of being afraid and terrified of the drain in the shower and in the bathroom. So that I can remember for sure. And definitely there was a scene there when Henry Bowers slid from under the bed. So definitely was afraid of that. And if the covers, it got too hot, I'd sleep with one leg out and one leg in. So this way the monster couldn't get me. So yeah, that was definitely some stuff that I was afraid of as a kid.
Many kids are first introduced to horror through children's stories or fairy tales like The Legend of Sleepy Hollow or Little Red Riding Hood. Was there a particular children's story or fairy tale that excited or scared you when you were very young?
Yes, 2 fairy tales actually that I could remember that I loved and to this day still love was Jack and the Beanstalk and Hansel and Gretel. Those 2 stories I think have influenced a lot of my work just really, to now. And that can be seen also in our film Abnormal Attraction, which was a fantasy, fairy tale, horror, monster comedy film that we did.
Urban legends and campfire stories are a common part of childhood, and this was especially true growing up in Staten Island. The Billup House and Old Bermuda Inn were said to be haunted, and legend has it, when you turn your headlights off at night on Bedell Avenue, you might see a ghostly figure hanging from a tree. Since the 1940s, children were warned not to stray too far from home, or they might be snatched up by a shadowy figure that would carry them away to the abandoned Seaview Hospital, never to be seen again. This boogeyman was called Cropsey, and some versions of the story claimed he was an escaped mental patient. During the 1960s through the 1980s, the legends of Cropsey blurred in with reality when a former orderly of the hospital set up camp on the abandoned grounds of Seaview. He was found responsible for the abduction and murder of several children until he was captured and sentenced to life imprisonment. Did you hear about Cropsey or other local legends growing up?
I did actually. I know all the stories you're talking about, and the Billup House, the Bedell Avenue, Conference House, Seaview, Bailey Seton. There's actually a book called Haunted Island, which Staten Island's a colonial colony of Revolutionary War. So there's a lot of very old landmarks and spots that are supposed to be haunted. I have that book actually, Haunted Island. It might actually be on my coffee table back here, which is funny that you mentioned those stories. I actually made a fun, short little teaser trailer called Haunted Island on our YouTube page that kind of talked a little bit about those things. Always was interested in the history of Staten Island and the history of those hauntings and sightings. As for Cropsey, yes, did hear about it. Not so much as a child, more recently, maybe when I was in my late teens and then entering and going into college, early 20s. There's actually a documentary called Cropsey, and a fellow Staten Island filmmaker, Joshua Zeman, produced it, and it's very interesting, and I recommend anybody checking it out. And it's funny, my wife actually lived in Brooklyn, and she originally was from Cropsey Avenue. So that's a nice little connection between Staten Island and where she originated from in Brooklyn. But yeah, definitely a lot of scary spots on Staten Island. I used to visit them all and kind of try to see what it was all about. I went to Bedell a few times, went to Conference House, Richmond Town, knocked on the door to hear if you hear knocks back. So definitely a spooky place.
There are 5 Levy brothers. I've heard you say nothing is stronger than family. Who are these guys?
Got to put my glasses on here. Like it's, this is the first time that picture has been pulled up in an interview, actually probably ever. So to the right, to the left, that's me in the back, obviously. And that's my business partner and also brother, one of my brothers, Jason Levy. We had taken that picture obviously as a kid, and that's in the sink. Couldn't fit in the sink nowadays, so we reenacted it a few years back in the bathtub. So well done. That was a good laugh. Thank you. Yeah, that was fun.
Your grandfather, Nicholas.
Oh, that's
Salvadeo.
me and my grandfather. He was someone who influenced me a lot growing up. And, he was someone who, along with my mom, introduced me and my brothers to horror. And we actually started a Halloween display many years ago when he was still alive. And our first life-size figure, we built a ghost face from Scream. And ever since then, we've been adding to our collection. So all the neighborhood kids come by, and now we have a huge collection of different horror icons and stuff that on Halloween, everybody can come by and have a good time. You might have went mute on me. I don't hear you at the moment.
Hello.
Yeah, I don't hear you. Is it me? It's me. So you're good. It was my end.
Oh, okay, good. Well, your grandfather was affectionately called Big Guy, and he called you his shadow because you would follow him everywhere.
Correct.
Here he is dressed up as a creepy clown for you under a bridge. Clowns will become a reoccurring thing throughout your life.
Yes, yeah. My grandfather was always into what we were into and always tried to encourage it, and along with my mom too and my dad, and so like I said, I was a big Stephen King's It fan, and there was the sewers and stuff that ran by Staten Island where there was a little ravine, and so we reenacted a scene where he put the Pennywise mask on, and we can almost say, I guess, that was the original origins of the Staten Island Clown, as you mentioned, where there's a lot of, and you're wearing the shirt there's a lot of clowns in my life, and it was something I was fascinated with as a kid, and I guess it continues in my adulthood and my career.
As you've said, your grandfather was the one who helped introduce you to horror movies, but did you have any restrictions on what you were able to watch as a kid?
I don't know. Not that I could remember, but I'm sure that there were, that my mom and my dad and my grandparents and stuff wouldn't let me see. I just don't know if I fully remember what I wasn't and what I was, because I just remember watching whatever I wanted to see, but I'm sure there were restrictions. I know for a fact in the comedy world I wasn't allowed to watch Austin Powers until my mother watched it first, because I started watching it and telling her what was happening. She said, I need to see this first. That I remember. And then you watch it, so it's hilarious and you could watch it. But as far as horror goes, they were just so into it all the time that, maybe they were just selective in what they had showed me first, and then obviously I discovered some stuff later on. I know that I didn't see the Jason, the Friday the 13th stuff. Maybe that's because it was a little more gory until I was in my teens, but I saw like Halloween and It and Leprechaun and things like that maybe were a little more suggestive as opposed to showing the gore at first, and those things, and obviously Goosebumps and kids stuff like Are You Afraid of the Dark, for sure.
Yeah. You became interested in movie making at 4 years old, and you've previously said you stole your mother's camcorder to make movies with your brothers and friends. Do any of these films still exist?
Yes, actually, there's a ton of them under this desk right over here that I haven't watched in a long time. They're in like boxes, and even my wife has asked to see them. Maybe one day we'll pull them out. Maybe one day we will release some snippets and stuff on social media. They do. I remember making, movies that everyone had been familiar with, like, our own Halloween, our own Back to the Future, our own Ace Ventura, things like that. And then doing a few other films that were just original ideas. Like we made a film called The Map that I could think of just off the top of my head. Made another movie called The Jack, which was like a horror jester person. And then in high school and college, made a ton of other films. Was big into parody stuff when I was at Monsignor Farrell High School. I was the head anchor there for WFBN TV. At the time, I was the youngest anchor, and we made the most skits in the school's history, where we'd get teachers and faculty and the student body all involved, and we would do spin-offs of Saw, and we call it Flaw, and we would do James Bond, because we had a British teacher that was an English teacher that was there that was from London, from Europe and England, and so we would do different parodies, and that's really where I got my start into learning how to edit, learning how to advance my storytelling, learning how to deal with, my biggest thing for me was learning how to deal with adults and people that were of different ages, older than me, younger than me, and learning how to navigate those personalities and direct and get the performances that I needed out of them.
Speaking of Monsignor Farrell High School, you were involved in sports, student government, and several clubs, including the debate team, where you qualified for state championship. You, as you said, were main desk anchor and skit coordinator for the school's TV station, WBFN TV. You, as you said again, you wrote more skits than anybody else in the history of the station. This is where you linked up with future Fuzz on the Lens partner Stephen Della Sala. When you weren't busy with school and filmmaking, you were hanging out with friends at Long Beach Island, playing airsoft or frisbee golf, or tooling around in your friend's red Mustang convertible, or your silver Toyota you named Bertha.
That's good. That is good. This is a good interview. This is awesome. Yes, Bertha, my first car. And we've had Bertha 2 and 3, 4 since then. But yes.
How much of your high school experience informs who you are today?
A lot. I owe it to really, high school, really who I am and the friends that I made. And most of my friends I had made through grammar school and kept them through high school and then even through college and stuff. So for sure, I used to, like you said, did a ton of intramural things. I like to be well-versed and, try not to stay too stagnant in one thing. I played a lot of sports, intramural sports, flag football, softball, things like that. and just try to absorb and take anything that I could in high school. I know that when I was a kid, I did some commercials and child acting and things like that before getting to the other side of camera, and I chose very consciously not to go to LA and kind of do that child actor thing, because I really wanted to have a normal childhood while still pursuing my dreams and honing in on my craft. But I felt it was very important to have that, typical high school experience before I got too, ahead of myself and into my career.
In an age where teenagers are dealing with COVID lockdowns and active shooter drills, do you think horror movies can provide catharsis for teenagers trying to process these fears?
I do. I don't I don't blame the movies for a lot of these things that happen. I think that you can find peace in them and understand that these are just films, and if you're dealing or struggling with problems, you can look to the movies to find sanctuary and to find answers and to just kind of find an escape. I think that is so important in any film, whether it's horror films or comedy movies or dramas, whatever, is to kind of escape real life and be entertained for however long or however many minutes or hours the film or TV show or whatever is. So yeah, for sure. What I like about horror in particular is back in the day it was very taboo, and there was a lot of people who didn't realize that there were other people like us that enjoyed horror films. So like it was seen as very introverted, like it was something you didn't talk about. And nowadays, because of social media and conventions, we find each other and we realize that there were a lot more of us that are out there, and now it's become like a cool club of the horror fans. And that's where I met you at a convention in Atlanta for Days of the Dead with Danielle Harris. And so because of these things and because of social media, we wouldn't even be talking today or have ever met, and we both love horror the same. So I think it's really cool where the genre is going and where the industry has gone, and where and what's cool about it is it's horror specifically. You don't see comedy conventions or drama conventions or anything like that. Comic book, yes, because that's the most similar, I think, is that in style and things, is that through horror films, there's like a big connection because of the community. It's a great community of people. The horror filmmakers, it's just so accessible, like we're talking today, and I love that about horror, is that it's so inclusive. And you could find some great people in the community. They're the nicest people in the world, both on the filmmaking side and the fan side.
Could you possibly tell me the story behind this picture with Katy Perry?
Yeah, so that's funny, because that was before Katy Perry was Katy Perry, I guess. She was just getting started, and that was at Z100 Zootopia, which is an event. Z100 does a few events throughout the year, these big events. I don't know if they must still be doing them, but I know pre-COVID, before that, and they do like Jingle Ball and stuff like that. So that was a trip that we had done with WFBN TV, my high school TV station, where we were able to help out another friend of mine who graduated from Farrell as well and moved on to work for Z100, Elvis Duran in the Morning Show, Garrett Vogel. And at the time, he was working with, hand in hand with Z100 and everything with Zootopia. So he invited us out there to help them. We did interviews with Katy Perry and New Kids on the Block and Miley Cyrus and the Jonas Brothers. And we got to work backstage, and it was just a really great experience, kind of internship style, for a few days. And that was one of the most incredible experiences I was able to do as a teen.
Do you think more songs have been written about love, lust, or heartbreak?
Heartbreak, I think. Maybe that's because they get the most emotion, where people get so angry they need to do something and find a way to fill that void. I mean, look, there's a lot of love songs. There's obviously a lot of lust songs too, but I think more so heartbreak seems to be, I think, the one that just has a little bit more.
I heard you would sometimes draw doodles of clowns during your classes in college. Again, back with the clowns. Do you think film school is necessary to make movies?
No, I don't think film school is necessary to make films or get into the entertainment business. I don't regret going to college. and doing, film school stuff. And, like you said, I got a degree in television and film, and I made some great friends and did some amazing things and had a wonderful experience. Met my wife in college. But if I was to do it all over again, I probably right out of high school would have tried working more, because I think that experience in this field in particular, and there's a few others, different fields, experience is just so much more important than theorizing about different film projects. I'd rather be on set, be working, networking, making the experiences. So for me, definitely don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's a bad thing. I just don't think you need it.
You formed your production company, Fuzz on the Lens, with Stephen Della Sala and your brother Jason in 2010. You guys quickly became hometown favorites, voted People's Choice for Staten Island's Best Filmmakers in 2016 by the Staten Island Advance. Just this year, Fuzz on the Lens was asked to produce a film for the Stay in Staten Island campaign, shown at this year's State of the Borough address. Where did the name Fuzz on the Lens come from?
It's funny. We were making a film back in high school called Rock Hard, and it was a project for, I think, our senior or junior, somewhere in there, one of the film classes. And friend of ours who is not a filmmaker, actually, he's an accountant, Anthony Samaras. It's probably the first time I ever said his name on air. I always just say a friend, but Anthony Samaras he was holding the camera. He was the camera operator that day. And as we were rolling and doing a scene, he stops it in the middle of it because there's a fuzz on the lens, and the camera's still rolling. He turns it around. He's blowing on the lens. He's cleaning the lens. We're looking into the lens and trying to find this magical, elusive fuzz, and couldn't find it for the life of us. 20 minutes go by. We're still rolling on the tape, and this is all recorded. We still have the footage to this day. And we're trying to find this damn fuzz. Lo and behold, we find out it is not fuzz on the lens. It's smudge on the viewfinder, and it's on the reverse. It's a little smudge that you could lick your finger and wipe off. But it kind of became an ongoing joke, make sure you check for that fuzz on the lens every time we were shooting, and would ask people, hey, you see a fuzz on the lens? Eventually, when it became time to name the company, it kind of just was serendipitous. It kind of just made sense to us because it was so close and personal and something silly and a little inside joke. And you know what? It's stuck, and everybody likes it because you can remember it, and very happy and proud of the name that we have chosen, and happy that it has meaning to us. So yeah, that's where Fuzz on the Lens originated from one of our dumb friends.
You produced a number of short films and a popular Halloween fan film in your first few years. You appeared as featured background in Sharknado 2 with Stephen Della Sala. This is a segment with Jay Leno you had with for the Tonight Show. How did the planets align to make this happen?
A very right place, right time kind of thing. We were out in California visiting a friend of ours who's in the Navy, and it was the first time we were ever out on the West Coast, out in LA, and we were there for like a week or two. And so we started off in San Diego, we drove up the coast, and we did all the touristy things. So at that point, we were at Universal Studios, and Jay Leno was still on the Tonight Show at the time, and he was doing a segment called Jaywalking. And so, knowing my friends, knowing how I am and the ham that I am, were pushing me along to go on the show. So they were asking for anybody who's ever done online dating. I've never done online dating in my life, but I told everyone that I was, because now the internet was, blown up, and, online dating was becoming a thing. So I totally made up a story about online dating, but it was so funny. The producers were laughing. Jay was laughing. They ended up airing the segment and featuring the segment on one of the episodes. That was a really fun, awesome time. And I got to say I was on the Tonight Show, which was cool, with Jay Leno. I mean, that was, like you said, it's just stars aligned, right place, right time, and had a blast.
In March 2014, people were unnerved by sightings of a mysterious clown lurking the streets of Staten Island. Photos of the Staten Island clown became a social media sensation, and news outlets from around the world covered it. Fuzz on the Lens revealed you were behind the phenomenon. Afterward, the clown made appearances at a local radio station, entered a wrestling match, threw out the first pitch at a baseball game, and appeared in the off-Broadway show Tony and Tina's Wedding before retiring in 2016. Is it true the clown could have been a Grim Reaper or Sasquatch? And who wore the costume?
So yes, originally when we were coming up with the idea, we were at like a Buffalo Wild Wings and maybe had way too many drinks. And this idea sparked, and we wanted to change the narrative because I remember seeing something in the news about overdoses and drugs, and everything was just so negative. And so we said, let's change the narrative. Let's do something creative and kind of have some fun with it, and do some kind of like a real life, like a social experiment where you could make a real life movie. And so that's where the idea had come from. And we were tossing ideas of what to put out there. Could it be a Sasquatch? Could it be a Grim Reaper? And we kept going back and forth. We kept coming upon clown. And the reason for that is clowns are really controversial. There's people who love them and think they're funny and silly. And there are people, obviously, look at Terrifier 2 and Stephen King's It, that are petrified of clowns. You can't even say the name clown and they start running, right? Chlorophobia is a real thing. And throughout the years, I've learned that heavily. So we felt it was the perfect thing to put out there because, you could kind of just let it do its thing and people will talk about it and argue on social media about where its origins are from and what's going on. So that's why we chose clown. As to who wore the outfit or who is the clown, to this day, we have still not revealed who it is. Even though he is retired, maybe one day he will appear again. So it's still a mystery.
Abnormal Attraction began as an idea for a short film and became your first feature film as director. You assembled a cast that included Bruce Davidson, Leslie Easterbrook, the late Gilbert Gottfried, and the amazing Malcolm McDowell, among others. You told Richard Dreyfuss you were going to direct at a meet and greet arranged by your father, and you saw him again after directing Abnormal Attraction. Can you tell me what this experience was like?
That was an amazing experience. I had met Richard Dreyfuss clearly many, many years ago. I might have been 11, maybe 9, somewhere in that age, that age. Maybe it was 1999 or 2001, 2000. It was somewhere in that time frame. And I met him and he had given me advice. I said, I want to be a filmmaker. I want to be an actor. I want to direct, whatever. And he just said, keep with it. And after saying, why, it's a crazy business, but he had said, keep with it. And I stood out in the rain with my grandfather and waited for him to come out. They were shooting a TV show at the time. And I kept going back and forth and waiting. And finally, I guess the AD or someone walked over and says, this kid and his grandfather have been out here in the rain for hours to meet you. And he goes, why didn't anybody tell me? I would have went earlier. And he rushed out and we were with him for like a half hour, 20 minutes. And it was really cool. He signed an autograph and, told me to stick with it. Flash forward, however many years later, I finished my first film. And I meet him at a convention and I start to tell him the story and he remembered the story. He remembered who I was and remembered, he says, you were the kid out there standing in the rain with your grandfather. And he started to cry. He started to tear up. And, I said, well, I made my first film finally. And the only thing he said is joke. He said, I'm not in it. And I says, well, we wanted you to be in it. We just couldn't afford you. But, hopefully, at some point in time, it would be really cool to do something with Richard Dreyfuss and kind of make everything really come full circle. But what an experience that was. And he got really emotional about it. And then we got to take that picture of him holding the poster of Abnormal Attraction. That's a moment in time I will never forget.
You were introduced into Damien Leone's world of Terrifier through its producer, Phil Falcone. In October 2016, horror fans watched you as Will the Exterminator, who gets decapitated by Art the Clown. You returned for the sequel as a producer and assistant director. The success of Terrifier 2 is unprecedented. Art the Clown has entered the zeitgeist. The movie has been praised by Stephen King and has launched its own subgenre as the first mega slasher. You've given so many great interviews about these movies, so I will only touch on them briefly. In a testament to you as a producer, Terrifier 2 was made with a $250,000 budget. In contrast, my father is the location manager for a television series, and he is budgeted at $480,000 for each hour-long episode, and that is only for the locations department. How did you achieve a movie of this caliber that looks this beautiful with that budget?
Thank you. A lot of dedicated people that did a lot of favors, you know, and a lot of love, really. You know, when you're making an independent film, you got to find people that are like-minded, that believe in the project just as much as you do, or it's never going to happen. It's really hard to make a movie in general, and to make it on that shoestring of a budget, it's even tougher, especially throw in COVID happens. So yeah, it was going over really long days. It was because we weren't bound to a studio, we were able to, you know, keep shooting until we got it right. And that's why it took years to make. Thankfully it all worked out and everyone sees why it took that long. But yeah, it just comes into calling in every favor you can, every friend you can. You know, there were people that weren't in the film business that were helping us out. And again, just coming together with really great people and making it happen, no matter what the circumstance, no matter how.
We actually have a question from the audience. Kaylee Hyman from Philadelphia would like to ask, what's your perspective on when Steve fell on her?
Yeah, Kaylee. So Kaylee's in Terrifier 2, obviously. She plays Brooke. And that was a really funny moment, I thought. I think it was horrifying for her. I think I just recently told her we were together in Days of the Dead in Atlanta recently, and I was talking about how funny it was. She's like, well, I'm glad you found it funny, but I think she found the humor in it too. Steve was usually you clear talent and, you know, you get out of the way and then you fix a light or you adjust something, you know, and then talent goes back. But we were just so behind and it was just such a quick fix. Steve throws the apple box down. She's like, yeah, it's cool. I'm laying here. He goes up and the apple box, I don't know what happened. He lost his balance. And Steve never loses his balance and literally almost, luckily he was able to move his legs, almost fell directly on her. It's an AD's worst nightmare. I'm sure it's a production's, you know, worst nightmare, but everybody was okay. Ended up being a funny moment. The only thing I'm upset about is I don't think it was on film. Would have been a nice, you know.
Dang. That would have been the best blooper.
She is the best. We love Kaylee. We love Casey. We love Lauren. We love the girls in Terrifier. The franchise are really amazing people. And Kaylee is just like her character, fun, bubbly, has become a really great friend. And I'm just so happy for all of them. And it's really cool to be doing the convention circuit with them every once in a while. And it's like hanging out with old friends. So it's a big sorority fraternity party.
There's so much information online about how to be a director, but almost nothing about producing and financing a film. Pitch deck or lookbook is a useful tool to garner interest from an investor for a project. What's the formula for creating an effective pitch deck?
Be as explanatory as you can, as visual as you can, in the most concise and short way as you can. You know, you want to have a flash in the pan. You want to make it interesting. You want to make it snappy. You don't want it to be too wordy. You want to have a lot of references based on what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like, and what it's about, because this is really your one shot at that person or whoever you're pitching it to, your investor, to kind of impress them and give them the full idea of what your story is. So it's like that elevator pitch you're trying to just cram into your pitch deck. They're great for explaining the story. It's great for showing the investments. So you want to make sure you don't only give them what your story is about. You don't only give them who's attached to it or who your wish list is, but you also then want to give them the waterfall of how the investment breaks down. And you want to keep this all in a concise manner. And if you can do that and get them excited about the project and just somehow through those words and through those images show them your passion about the project, then, you know, it usually gets them to want to be a part of something special and something that you believe in.
On May 20th each year, you observe National Dr. Vink Day.
What?
That is Vink with a va. But it's your your observance of Halloween and Christmas that's become legendary on the island. There have been news reports about your Halloween displays, which you've mentioned previously, which includes life-size Michael Myers, Nosferatu, Pennywise, Leprechaun, and Donald Trump. How big is a life-size leprechaun anyway?
Is he behind me? He's not behind. So for a while he was behind me and I could have showed you. It's actually moved to my parents' house for the time being. So it's probably about 3 feet tall is the average size, the life-size leprechaun. It's like how he was in the movie. It's the replica of Warwick Davis. The other life-size mannequins and such are about what they are in the film. So Freddy Krueger's probably like 5'8" or so, 5'9". Michael Myers is like a 6 foot thing. Jason is like a 6'2". So it varies on the character. We try to get them as close and as realistic to what the actor who portrayed them or whatever in the project. As for National Dr. Vink Day, yes, May 20th we do it. That was the actor played Aaron Tagger. The late Aaron Tagger became a really cool friend. As I mentioned, Are You Afraid of the Dark was an influence growing up. And so my friends and I thought it would be cool to do a National Dr. Vink Day, and Aaron Tagger jumped on board with that idea. So yeah, that's an awesome thing that you found in your research there. Very cool.
Thank you. What is your most prized Halloween decoration, and what is the Dickey Award at your family's Christmas spectacular?
Yeah, so I don't know my most prized. I love them all for different reasons. Obviously, there's the Scream, which is the first one that we had built, the ghost face with my grandfather. I love the Leprechaun one just because Leprechaun is one of the big reasons I got into horror, and it's signed by Warwick Davis, actually. I also love the Dr. Loomis we made, and I love the Munster, the original from Al Lewis from the Munsters. We have him. The Candyman from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is great. Not many people have that at all, so that's a cool one. We got custom the face done, and then we built it, the full body. So there's just so many and too many to really pinpoint. I love the Tim Curry legend we have and the Tim Curry Pennywise. But yeah, they're all love them for all different reasons. The Dickey Award. So every year since my grandfather passed in 2005, we had done a Christmas spectacular. Every Christmas, all the cousins and family members and aunts and uncles and parents and grandparents and everything get together, and we do a kind of roast video where everybody plays each other. And through all the funny things that happen throughout the year, we kind of make fun of and abuse the different family members. And we've been doing this now, since 2005. So 15, we celebrated our 10-year, and now we're almost at 20. We're like, 17 or 18. And in honor of my grandfather, his name was Nicholas Salvadeo. My grandmother called him Dicky as a nickname. So we make and he had a contagious laugh, and he loved telling jokes and making people laugh. So we do the Dicky Award, and we have everybody vote at the end of who was the funniest and who acted the best. And then we give the trophy out at the end, and then they hold it for a year. And then every year we do that. So it kind of gets everybody involved and makes everybody want to give it their best. And it's a great tradition that we do in our family. We watch it every Christmas Eve after we have the dinner and before dessert, and we just have some laughs.
You announced you were working on Night of the Living Dead 2 recently. David Howard Thornton will be in it, but also Laurie Cardile and Terry Alexander from the original Day of the Dead as well. Let me ask, do you prefer fast zombies or slow zombies?
I don't know. That's a good question. I like them both for different reasons. I think slow zombies are a little bit more eerie, even though it's like they're slow, but there's something disturbing about it. But I think fast zombies are more frightening, if that makes sense, because they could literally charge at you, and it's like, how the hell am I going to get away from this? Yes, that project, from what I'm told, it's moving along. Marcus Slabine, a good friend of mine, is set to direct it. We've shot a sizzle reel for it for a part of our pitch deck to get some extra funds in. And from what I understand is they're going to be changing the name to Island of the Dead, which is pretty cool, to kind of fit the whole Night of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and so on and so forth. So looking forward to when that happens for sure. And Marcus is a great director, great friend. He worked with us on Stream as well, Terrifier 2. And so we just keep it all in the family. You find people you like working with. It's never a job. It's never work. It's just fun.
Speaking of, Stream is the project you've been working on. You've assembled the Avengers of Horror for this movie. A quick rundown of the cast: former guests of What's Under the Bed and friends of the show, Danielle Harris and Dee Wallace, are in it. Then there's Jeffrey Combs, Tony Todd, Felissa Rose, and Terry KISER, who I want all on the show. David Howard Thornton is in it, and I understand Damien Leone has done the special makeup effects for you. when will we get to see a trailer?
Huh. Usually that's a good question. Usually everyone asks, when's it coming out, right? No one has asked when there's going to be a trailer. We're hoping in the next, I don't want to pinpoint exactly, but within the next 4 months, 3 to 4 months, hopefully sooner, but we're just finishing up some post-production stuff now. Actually, before the interview, I had a meeting on some stuff and I got some things afterwards involving it, but we're aiming to have this out hopefully by fall time this year. And we'll be releasing a poster within the next 2 months. So be on the lookout for that. And then obviously a trailer will be coming. Really excited. Love the cast. And what I love about the film too is we have some great horror genre people, but there's some amazing actors and actresses that are up and coming and unknown. I talk about it all the time. It's Sidney Malachi, Wesley Holloway, who was the serial kid commercial in Terrifier 2. He's one of our leads. He brings an incredible performance. Charles Edwin Powell, who plays our hero, our protagonist, Roy Keenan, he gives his heart and soul to this role. I can't wait for everybody to see him. He's just magnetic, and you root for him. And he plays Danielle Harris's husband in the film. So I'm really excited for everybody to see not only the name talent, but also the unknowns or the up and comers. And what's cool about it is, even though we have an ensemble of really amazing people, the story is not driven just because of the names. You know, everybody was given that part because they deserved it and they fit the role. And it's all about the story and all about the kills and the creativity of that. And that's what I'm most proud of.
I've been to New York twice, but never to Staten Island. The next time I visit the city, I will take the boat to the island. When I'm there, I will grab breakfast at Page Diner. Then I'll visit Richmond Town, see the zoo, or catch a Ferry Hawks ball game. After that, I'll be hungry. So I'll grab a slice at Lee's Pizza on my way to grab a whole pie at Danino's. I'll cross the street for the chocolate lemon ices at Ralph's Italian Ices. That way, I'll be plenty stuffed before sitting in traffic on the Verrazano Narrows Bridge back to the city. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, there's a lot you got there, which is really awesome. I would visit the St. George Theater. It's one of the most beautiful old school theaters like Broadway. If there's a show going on when you come, definitely catch it. It's great entertainment. It's such a beautiful gold trim and everything. And if you get a chance, definitely grab some, other than the pizza that you mentioned, which is absolutely amazing. Real deal soul Italian food. There's some great restaurants, too many to name. Brioso's is one just off the top of my head, but many amazing Italian restaurants here on Staten Island too. Delicious food, and can't get anything better. Really up there with some of the best in the city.
So this last question is usually a Sophie's Choice, where I give you a list of 3 things and you are asked to select 2 to die so that 1 can live. But I want to try something a little different with you.
All right.
Three clowns go into a room and only 1 comes out alive. Art the Clown, Pennywise the Dancing Clown, or the Staten Island Clown. Who lives and how?
Oh, wow. Who lives in that scenario? I think the Staten Island Clown, sadly, is the first one to go. And the reason for that is I know the guy who is the clown. My guess, I don't know if he can handle those 2. So now we're talking. Now, is Pennywise the Dancing Clown, is it Tim Curry's version or Bill Skarsgård's version?
Tim Curry.
Makes it more difficult. I'm going to go with Art the Clown. I think Art the Clown is the one to come out alive. And the reason for that is, even though Pennywise is a shapeshifter and, he's been around for so long, he was defeated by a bunch of kids and then defeated again by those same kids and has yet to return for any other films.
Yeah.
Art the Clown has been defeated by himself. He took himself out to then become eternal. And no one has yet beat him, not even Sienna so far, who is the only one who probably can. We see that through the rebirth that he has come back. Also, reason why I'm bringing Art the Clown back is because without him, where's my career? So, so he's got to keep coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Art the Clown. I know it's a little bit of a favoritism there, but I love all those clowns, right? Staten Island Clown's close to me, and obviously Pennywise and Tim. So yeah, but Art, I think Art makes it out.
I agree with that statement. I actually thought it of both Tim Curry and Bill Skarsgård when I was doing the test to myself. I just believe Pennywise would lose because Art doesn't fear. It doesn't seem like Art has fear.
Right.
And Pennywise lives on fear. And if he literally got bullied to death in the Bill Skarsgård version.
I know. And then the other one. That's why I think if it's Bill Skarsgård versus Tim Curry, I think Tim Curry wins.
Yeah.
I think that. But they do have fear. Like Tim Curry's version was afraid of the battery acid. You kind of face him and the silver bullets and then spider things. So yeah. It's sadistic, and that really is because of Damien Leone's crazy mind, and the character he developed is brutal. So I'm interested in seeing. I know a little bit for upcoming Terrifier 3, but Damien's always having crazy ideas, and I try to help when I can and when asked. I'm curious to see where this story goes and how we can make it rock and make it awesome. So yeah, keep Art going.
Is there anything you want to ask me before we go?
Yeah, first of all, I want to just say this was the best interview that I've ever done. And I've done a ton of interviews and all of them are great, but the amount of research and dedication and time that you put in, your charisma, it was a pleasure. I had a lot of fun. I didn't know what questions were coming next. You kept it interesting and light and moving. And so thank you for that. Thank you for an entertaining, fun interview, because sometimes these things can be redundant. Your questions were all awesome. I just want to ask you, what made you want to do interviews like this and podcasts and have this show? What drove you?
So actually, at one point I've always watched horror movies, but I've not, it's only till like the past 4 years I've really gotten into the genre. But there was this one moment, I came downstairs to eat, and my dad and my grandmother were watching a documentary on Kane Hodder. And
documentary. It's a great documentary.
Amazing documentary.
Yeah.
I came downstairs and I saw it and I was like, okay, I'll watch it while I eat and I'll go back upstairs. I ended up watching the entire film twice.
Yeah, it made me really like Kane too. I didn't know Kane well, obviously, and saw him at the conventions and stuff, but really took a liking to Kane, and really we don't want to work with him because of that documentary. So I'm right there with you. That documentary was incredibly done, and he's a really genuine person. And
yeah, there was a moment where my dad. Where I pointed at the screen and I was like, I want to talk to that guy. And it was Kane Hodder. And my dad was like, well, you can't just talk to him. He's not going to remember you. And I'm like, well, okay, Dad. And what do you suggest? And he's like, why not interview him? And I said, well, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
And it became a moment where we finally met him on an online convention called GalaxyCon. I had bought a Jason Part 7 mask, and I wore it the first thing, and I asked him, how many interviews do I have to do to get you on the show? And he said, why not 5? And you are officially the 25th interview. And I finally got his email. So everybody who's watching this video, expect Kane Hodder, hopefully.
That's amazing, and I can't wait to watch that episode. That is an amazing feat, and congratulations. You've interviewed some super cool people, obviously Danielle and Dee, and they're great friends, and I think you're great at what you do, and just keep it going, and keep rocking and rolling. Obviously, the more you do it, the better you get, and you're pretty damn good. So you do great research, and it's a lot of fun. So stick with it, and I'm just excited to follow your journey and see what you have coming up next.
Thank you. tell your friends.
For sure. I will. This is one of the ones I'm definitely going to recommend and let them know, listen, you gotta do some interviews because it's so good. I'm not even kidding. Like really, really great job, man.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sitting down with me. I had a blast. Where can people find you?
So yeah, the easiest way obviously is follow Fuzz on the Lens everywhere on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the whole nine. We're on every social media platform. And then from there, you could find me. I'm Michael Levy or Levis Island on Instagram and Leaves on Twitter, but it gets a little confusing. So Fuzz on the Lens, and then you could find me through that. And then also follow Stream Franchise. That's our next project. Use the hashtag join the stream. But yeah, Fuzz on the Lens is it.